a Friday MLB strategy show brought to you by Osmo.com. I'm joined by Adam Scher. I'm filling in for Josh. So me and Adam are going to run it back, and then I think we're going to run it back again tonight on the deeper dive. So you're going to be seeing a lot of Adam and myself today. Adam, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Nice to have a 15 game slate after yesterday's 7 gamer with no pitching on it.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal. Freed did well, but not a lot going on. I didn't end up profiting. You didn't play the night slate. I've got your early slate pulled up um, on lineup study. Looks like you had a lineup that was competing for the top. Did you have a sweat at all with this?
Yeah, I was in fifth with my entire Cardinal stack coming up in the eighth inning, and they pinch hit for every single hitter. And then the Reds chalk, like I think Irvin hit like a walk-off home run to knock me out of the top 10.
Yeah,
So
so
it was a lot of fun.
that sounds amazing. That sounds like how my baseball season has gone. The second half of the season,
Yeah.
um, first half was much better, but it looks like you went really heavy on. Well, actually, you were pretty spread around. I mean, I see 5-man stacks all around the top, but a bunch of St. Louis was in your best lineups. So the Reds ended up being super chalky. Is that right?
Yeah, Suarez was like 30%. Irvin was 15 or 16, which for a 4 game slate, I guess isn't that high. Aquino was, I think, around 30. I ended up just not having Cincinnati
Okay.
and actually had a lot of Vargas.
Yeah, it looks like we were pretty on about the Gray ownership. He was about 40% in Boyd. Um, Plesac, wow, I didn't think he would get to 38%. I mean, this is a pretty sharp tournament. There weren't a ton of entries, so it's probably just mostly sharp players playing the 15, so that makes some sense. Um, no real surprises as far as the ownership on the early slate. Let's take a look at the night slate. Um, this is the 555. We can look at that. Alex had 6 entries. Nothing really going on for him. Let's see what he played, though. I always like to look at what he plays in these small entry tournaments. Atlanta, Boston. So he was on the Atlanta stack too. I mean, I guess I use his projections, so we would be on the same stacks a lot of the time. But um, Atlanta's Atlanta 5-man, well, really a 6-man with Freed in a 555 entry tournament. So a lot of leverage off of Strasburg. Strasburg was, oh man, he was only 23% in the 555. That's a little bit surprising. I guess everybody must have been paying up for bats. Pruitt, Miley, and Means were all chalkier than Strasburg in the 555. Um, Looking at the $15, man, these contests look so much smaller. Only two with the 100K in prize pool, uh, under 8,000 entries as well. But let's see. I don't know, anything you're seeing in this $15 on the main? Doesn't look like it was a great night for pros, at least some of the top names. Mazwa winning the 25K for the second night in a row, I think. And then I don't really see, like Chipotle Addict was somewhat up there, but just cashed a bunch of entries, still lost money. Let's see what happened with Alex's lineups real quick, and then we will move it on, talk about some Yahoo, and then the 15-game slate. So Alex cashed 48 out of 150. Let's see who he was heavy on. Marlins stacks were at the top of his lineups. Bunch of Freed. How much Freed did he end up with? 66% Strasburg. So we were complete opposites. That doesn't make me feel too good. But
You said he had
he had
66%?
66%, yeah, in the $15.
Oh, wow.
I would not have guessed that at all. I would have guessed Freed would have been his highest owned guy, but maybe I did something wrong. He had 15% Freed. I mean, it worked out if you had Freed 37 fantasy points on DraftKings, but ultimately not enough to get a lot of people to profit, it looks like. All right. Let's move it on. We got 15 games. We need to go pretty quick because we have the NFL strategy show coming up after this with Chris Randone and Fantasy Crunchers Manny Laura. So I think I'll be producing that, depending on if Josh gets power back. That's going to start at 11 Eastern. We've got the Osmo Odd show at 12 Eastern, I believe. And then On the contrary, it's just a jam-packed day of video content from Osmo.com. So we're going to have a lot to get to. Want to mention Yahoo Fantasy Sports. They still have some of the lowest management fees in the industry for baseball. Still got this $3, 10.4% management fee, $600 to first. That's kind of the favorite tournament of a bunch of our subs. So get in that. You're not going to find a better tournament than that today, especially if you're looking at FanDuel and DraftKings. NFL tournaments, you're going to want to join the $1 Million Baller. No management fee on that. $1 million in prizes. 100K to first and just a 10 entry max. So you're on a more level playing field over on Yahoo. There's no CSV edit. You're going to have to hand build the old fashioned way. And I think it's going to probably overlay, or there's a decent chance it does overlay, just under a quarter full right now. So we'll see if there's a push on Sunday, but definitely a tournament you're going to want to check out. Of course, they've got the $1, they've got the $10, they've got a bunch of other tournaments, not just that $25 if that's out of your price range. All right. And if you want to get $30 of Yahoo Sports rewards points, you guys know you can check out Emacs Spotlight Hitters article. Check out the top 2 paragraphs, and there's some more information about how you can get that prize. So let's move it on. YouTube chat. Well, actually, Emacs asking you how the Orioles suite was.
It was fun. It wasn't like the normal DraftKings suite with just DraftKings people. It was like the Orioles corporate partner suite. So wasn't a lot of DraftKings people there, which was kind of nice, I guess. Like seeing, different faces. But yeah, it was fun. Orioles suck, but free food, free drinks.
Yeah, could be worse. And you didn't have to watch that abomination of an NFL game. So
yeah, exactly. Didn't see any of the first half, saw some of the third quarter, and then just stopped watching.
That sounds way better than watching that whole game and waiting for something to happen, and it never did.
Yep.
All right, let's go into this slate. 15 games will go pretty quick. We'll be running it back tonight again on the deeper dive. Texas and Baltimore, we've got Brock Burke going up against Dylan Bundy. Both guys in the 7K range on DraftKings, 33 for Burke on Yahoo, 39 for Bundy. I'm not seeing anything I love for pitching here, Adam. Do you like either guy here?
I think Bundy's kind of interesting depending on Texas's lineup. I'm assuming that they're going to go with 5 righties, 4 lefties. Bundy's got really good strikeout stuff against right-handed hitters in particular. Against lefties, he's done a pretty good job limiting power this year. The strikeouts aren't really where you would want them to be, but I think it's a decent spot for him. 4.2 implied run total for Texas. He's affordable. He's only 7,300 on DraftKings, 39 on Yahoo, even 75 on FanDuel. I think is okay. So Bundy is somewhat appealing.
Yeah, I guess just guys against Texas, I'm usually okay with taking 7,300. I guess just looking at some other guys in the slate that I like for cheaper around the same price that don't have to deal with, well, I guess it's not even that bad of hitting weather. Only a 4.2 implied total. I thought we would see a higher implied total here when I was looking at this earlier, but I guess Bundy would be in play for me. Do we have ownership yet? I was kind of stalling to see if we could get it. We do not yet, but once we do, we'll circle back on anyone that needs to be talked about. What about bats here? Do you like the Orioles again against another lefty, Brock Burke? A decent Orioles lineup if there ever was one, it looks like.
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar to yesterday where it's a lefty who's not terrible, but he's not great. The Orioles lineup is just actually pretty good here. The weather, like you said, isn't great for hitting. That's going to be the case in a lot of games now that it's starting to cool down as we get into September. Brock Burke has been pretty good over a very, very small sample at limiting production, but not getting a lot of strikeouts. 16.7% strikeout percentage against righties so far. And again, you'll probably have 7 straight right-handed hitters that are pretty decent. And then you'll probably get like Wilkerson and Richie Martin to fill out the lineup. But 1 through 7 should be pretty good for Baltimore. So again, they're a team where I think that they pretty clearly have a path to a good game, but they're just not talented enough where if they're going to get a lot of ownership, I would want them. So a lot will depend on their projected ownership.
Right. If they're not going to be owned, I think I would be interested in using the top half of this lineup in filler stacks. Looks like nice pricing for Mancini and I'm okay using VR. Would like him in the leadoff spot, but if he's not, then Alberto at 4K. I think there's some decent value on Baltimore. Just depends on how much they're going to be owned. So if we see anything in the first ownership update, we'll circle back to this game. Anything else on the Texas side you want to mention?
Shin-Soo Choo leading off at 4,400 is a pretty good value.
I agree. St. Louis and Pittsburgh, we've got Miles Michaelis going up against Joe Musgrove. Michaelis 8K, Musgrove 6K. We've got a 4.5 implied total here for the Cardinals, 4.1 for the Pirates, and Musgrove at his usual 6K price tag, probably going to be in play here. I don't think it's a great matchup. I don't think Musgrove is a great pitcher, but I just don't see a way in which I don't get a bunch from here at 6K. What about you, Adam?
Yeah, 6K is just too cheap of a price tag. He's not a great pitcher, but he's not a bad pitcher. Has about a 20.5% strikeout percentage for the season. Sierra, I'm pulling it up now, but I think it's around like 4.5. So that's just kind of a pitcher that you're going to end up rostering at 6K. 4.46 Sierra for Musgrove, 20.8% strikeout percentage. Pretty solid 15.4 K minus BB percentage because he doesn't walk a lot of guys. It's not a great matchup against the Cardinals, like you said. They're basically healthy now, and it's a pretty solid lineup, but it's also not like it's the Yankees or something like that. So it's just a price play where he projects to be a good point per dollar option, and he certainly has the ability to really outperform that price tag.
Yeah, we talk about it a bunch with these cheap pitchers, just that good point per dollar options, especially on a slate like this. I'm not all that concerned with ownership. I don't think Musgrove, even if he's the chalkiest pitcher in this range, is going to be the chalkiest by more than a couple percentage points. I think it's going to be pretty spread around in the low tier, so I'm fine taking some Musgrove. I'm fine taking a bunch of other guys in this range just as mostly price plays. Some more talented than others, of course, but not looking to take a bunch of Cardinals bats against him here. Middling totals for both of these teams, as totals are lower across the board. And we've got some issues on the East Coast with weather, it looks like. I don't think this game looks terrible right now. But assuming this one goes, are there any bats you're interested in on either side?
I think $4,600 on DraftKings for Josh Bell is really appealing. Miles Michaelis has allowed a 183 ISO, 352 WOBA to lefties this year. He's been much, much better at limiting righties. But Bell has a lot of power from the left side. He's affordable. So I think he's the one that really stands out.
I agree. Loved him yesterday. Gonna like him again today. He donged for Chris Randone yesterday. I should have just taken him for my home run pick. And I took the chalkier option. I think I took JD. And the Red Sox, man, they sucked yesterday. Did you see how they lost, by the way?
No.
They lost. So they had a runner on first. Someone hit a double, and then Rosario threw whoever it was that was on first out at home to end the game last out. So,
oh wow,
they're pretty much cooked for the season. But I only know that because it was against the Twins, and all my friends were celebrating. But yeah, pretty rough way to lose on a rough season for the Red Sox. Anyways, anything more in this game, or we can move it on to our third game on the night?
No, I think we can keep going.
KC and Miami. We've got Jorge Lopez going up against Pablo Lopez. 5,300 for Jorge, 6,300 for Pablo. 3.8 implied total here for KC. 4.3 for Miami. A couple cheap options, a couple pretty low implied totals. Possibly the roof being closed here could also help the pitching environment. Do you have a preferred play on either side here?
Yeah, I like Pablo. The Kansas City lineup is not bad now that they have Mondesi back. You do have 5 relatively difficult outs at the top, but the bottom of the order still really falls off of a cliff. You're getting a pitcher instead of a designated hitter. Pablo Lopez is just a pretty good pitcher too, and this game's in Miami. For the season, he has a 21.9% strikeout percentage, 4.24 Sierra is pretty solid, 16.5% K minus BB percentage. Kind of number, he's really similar to Musgrove as far as his numbers go, except a little bit better, like across the board. So I think that he is in a pretty nice spot against Kansas City. On the other side, it's obviously a good spot for Lopez too, for Jorge Lopez against Miami. He's not a particularly good pitcher, but he did throw 82 pitches his last time out against Baltimore. Actually had a really good start until the fifth inning. He gave up some runs. I think that he's okay, but I also think that there's a ton of value pitching on this slate, so not sure how much I'll actually get to.
Yeah, these guys right around 21.5%, 22% K rates each. I think Jorge's got the better matchup and he's cheaper. I think overall I'd probably prefer Pablo, but with the 1K price tag difference on DraftKings, a two-pitcher site, of course, and the ownership being what it is right now. We just got an ownership update a couple minutes ago. So it looks like Pablo Lopez is about 3.5 times as chalky right now as Jorge. For me, that makes Jorge much more interesting if this sticks throughout the day. But of course, I'm going to have a bunch of both of these guys. I can't imagine getting to a bunch of hitters on either side here. Do you see anyone that sticks out?
No, not really. The Marlins and the Royals playing in Miami isn't a spot that I anticipate getting to too much.
Yeah, 100%.
Isan Diaz, I guess, is a really good value.
He was, yeah. When I was running some crunches this morning, he was a guy that was coming up, but batting sixth. I mean, yeah, it's whatever in Miami. 15 games. I think we're gonna find better hitting spots. Ready to move it on?
Yep.
Yankees and Red Sox. We've got Domingo Germán going up against Jhoulys Chacín. Man, Chacín is cheap, 4,700. Germán, 9,700. Not exactly sure if this game is going to play. It looks pretty rough right now during game time, but 5.8 implied total for the Yankees, 5.3 for the Red Sox. Do you like either pitcher here? And if not, feel free to talk about bats on either side.
Yeah, I mean, Yankees-Red Sox games, not really games that I get to pitching all that much. Domingo Germán, I think, is really good, but still a really tough matchup against the Red Sox, and he's not that inexpensive. It looks like the weather here is pretty conducive to pitching. It looks like it should be about 63 degrees, but I still just have trouble seeing myself getting to either pitcher. Like, Chacín's really cheap, but there's a ton of cheap pitching in better spots than facing the Yankees that are also better pitchers than Jhoulys Chacín. And for Germán, I just don't anticipate paying $9,700 for a pitcher against the Red Sox.
Yeah. It's not like you're getting a ton of Ks against either team. Both have a ton of power. 114 and 116 WRC plus versus righties. For both of these teams, some of the highest ISOs you're going to see. So just bad matchups across the board, even for a $4,700 pitcher. I mean, I've played much worse guys than Chacín at this price, but there are better options for $600 more, like Jorge Lopez, or $1,500 more, $1,600 more for the guys in the 6K range as well. So don't see a need to get to pitching on either side. Really like bats on both sides. I mean, the usual suspects. It's guys like Gregorius, Judge, Mike Ford. Is he going to bat fifth? We have him right now at fifth. That's a pretty nice lineup bump, but I don't even know if he's going to be in the lineup. Depends on.
Yeah, say Encarnacion's back.
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, so this was what they had last time versus already. That's right. Encarnacion at 5,300, not a great price, but Gleyber Torres at 4,800. All these guys look appealing. I mean, it's just a matter of can you afford them or not, right?
Yeah, I mean, Chacín for his career has been good against righties, but that hasn't totally been the case this year. He still struck out 27%, but he's given up a 218 ISO, 364 WOBA. Sorry, so yeah, I think the Yankees are clearly a good stack.
Pretty tough to get to both of these teams on Yahoo. That will probably make them pretty underowned. Everyone in the top four for the Red Sox at $22 or more. And then for the Yankees, they've got, 5 guys at $20 or more throughout their lineup. No one below 13. So going to be hard to get a 6-man stack, I think, of both of these teams on Yahoo, but 5-mans and 4-mans for sure in play if you do like getting to that lineup construction over on Yahoo. You want to talk about Red Sox bats at all? I mean, it is a pretty good total against Germán, but are they a team you think you get to all that often against a good pitcher?
Probably not. I think that if they come in with no ownership, then it's still the Red Sox, and they're pretty much always appealing in that situation. But Germán's just a a good pitcher. Has about a 25.5% strikeout percentage against both sides of the plate. Has given up some power to lefties this year, 240 ISO to lefties, but this park doesn't really play up left-handed power, and the Red Sox outside of Rafael Devers don't really have it. So I guess Devers at 5K is a really good play, but overall, not a team I'm too excited about.
Yeah, I think there's a couple spots I'm looking at that have some better weather and maybe are games that actually are going to play because we don't know for sure if this one's going right now. Same thing with this next one, Arizona and Cincinnati. We have Robbie Ray going up against Tyler Mahle. Let me find this game over here. Where is this game at? Okay, Ray at 10.5, Mahle at 62. Like I said, I can't find the implied totals right now. I don't know if they're out. Let's see, 4.9 going to Arizona, 4.7 going to Cincinnati. You've been on the Tyler Mahle train, if I remember correctly. Is that changing at all here at 62?
Maybe a little bit. It's just a really tough matchup against Arizona because they don't have a lot of strikeouts in their lineup. Also prefer Mahle against right-handed heavy lineups, and you're probably only going to have 4 righties in this lineup. And if like Wilmer Flores is in there, it's a really low strikeout righty. Carson Kelly strikes out about 20%. So it's a really tough spot. I could see maybe getting to him some in tournaments. Like we have him projected, we have him at 7% ownership, whereas Pablo Lopez at the same price point is 26, and Musgrove is 19, and Valdez is 23. I think that those ownerships are probably where they should be. It's just a really, really tough spot for Mahle. It's not a great pitcher's park. I do think he's a really talented pitcher, though. So him at low ownership and a cheap price tag's at least somewhat appealing.
Yeah, I like him here. As you mentioned, 24% K percentage. Diamondbacks not really a good matchup against righties from a strikeout perspective, but overall, 89 WRC plus. I thought that'd be a bunch higher. I mean, a pretty average ISO, average on base percentage. I'm not seeing anything that's sticking out outside of them not striking out a lot, but I'm fine taking some chances on Mahle here, especially if he's going to be lower owned than some of the other guys in his range, like Pablo Lopez that we talked about, Framber Valdez, and Steven Matz. Shockingly getting a bunch more ownership right now than Mahle, so we'll see. But I have to imagine he comes up just a little bit. I don't know, he's got the highest K percentage of all these guys, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that concerns me is that against righties this year, he has a 27% strikeout percentage, but against lefties, he's at 20.8% with a 250 ISO. So if you get a lineup that has Dyson, Marte, Escobar at the top, and then Rojas in there somewhere in the top 6, it's just a really tough spot, like really, really tough lineup for him to work his way through. I think his stuff is good enough. He certainly can do it. It's just that I think, a really tough matchup.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe you don't need to get to a ton of him, but I mean, I'll take the talent if he's going to be at under 10% ownership right now. What about bats in this game? Pretty good hitter's park, 80 degrees, possibly some weather concerns here. Robbie Ray, is he a guy you want to target at all? I mean, he's $41 on Yahoo, so might even be playing Robbie Ray over there. But are you looking at him at 10.5 or bats against him on DraftKings?
I think bats against him are interesting. He's always tough for me to get to at his salary because he does have a really high strikeout percentage, which is nice, but he also walks a lot of guys. So you run into the issue of his pitch count just getting elevated really quickly between the strikeouts and the walks. And then he also gives up power. You're getting him outside of Arizona in Great American. I think that if Senzel's back in the lineup, you're going to have a pretty decent right-handed heavy lineup. Suarez, I think, is a really good play. Aquino's a good play. Senzel and Phil Irvin will be decent options as well. I like Ray at 41 on Yahoo, but at 10.5 on DraftKings with all the cheap pitching available on the slate, I don't anticipate getting them much.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get to much Ray at all. I'd rather just pay down. There are some weird prices on some other guys when you compare, like Michael Pineda is 10K against Cleveland. Like I'd much rather have Ray at 10.5 than Pineda at 10K, I think. But you've got Keuchel and Corbin priced up as well. So kind of a weird pitching slate at the top. No one that's sticking out to me all that much. It's a Kershaw slate too. But DraftKings really juiced up the pricing on a lot of these aces. So I guess Ray isn't that bad when you consider the guys in his range. So maybe you shouldn't just write him off at 10-5 like I was about to, but Molly is going to be the guy I get to more often than not. And then always like me some Suarez and Aquino. I don't think there's a real need to go to a bunch of Arizona bats if Molly's not getting owned. So let's go to Toronto and Tampa Bay. We've got, is this right? Clay Buchholz going up against Brendan McKay. Buchholz 6,500. Did not even know he was still in the league. But I think the guy we're going to be more interested in is Brendan McKay. Not a huge strikeout arm, but under 8K, going up against this Toronto team in a pitcher-friendly park. As we know, are you worried about the number of righties he's going to face here?
Kind of, but I'm more worried about how many pitches he's going to throw. He threw like 58 pitches against Seattle his last time out. Hasn't pitched in a couple of weeks. There's some question about if he's going to start or be the primary reliever. So all that I think will affect his overall projection. But if he does start and he's good to go, good to go as deep as he can, then I do think it's a pretty nice matchup. He struck out about 25.5% of hitters in the majors this year. His swinging strike stuff, his plate discipline stuff's been pretty good. 4.22 Sierra is not bad. And Toronto, it's not the worst lineup, but they're not overly scary either in a good park. So I think this is a spot where we'll need more news throughout the day. But if he is going to start and be allowed to throw 90 to 100 pitches, then I think he's a pretty decent option.
Yeah, so through 59, when was that? That was like 2.5 weeks ago. Did you mention, has he been pitching in the minors or what happened there?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm trying to pull up his minor leagues now. I don't know if they sent him down or if he just kind of hasn't been doing anything.
Yeah, that's weird. But anyways, I mean, he's thrown.
Yeah, he threw 53 pitches on August 31st at AAA.
53. So he hasn't thrown more than 59 for 3+ weeks, the 13th of August. So that is a little bit of a concern. It'll be interesting to see where Alex has him, if he can reach the 5-6 inning threshold. But this is one that I'm going to rely on the projections because the win equity looks to be there, but it's just a question of how long do we think McKay is actually going to go, because if he was full go, if he could go 100 pitches, I think I'd be playing a bunch of him here. And even as my SP1 when I'm trying to get to my expensive stacks. So.
Yeah, and so I looked on his minor league baseball page. There's an article from August 26th that says he was placed on the 7-day minor league injured list with left shoulder fatigue. So that's part of why he wasn't pitching. And it also makes me think that they're probably not going to push him too much.
Yikes. Did not know that. So, yeah, there's really no reason for them to push him, right? At least going into the playoff, like you would want to have this guy for the playoff roster. I think Tampa's in the playoffs, if I remember correctly.
They're in the race at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they're getting Snell and Glasnow back soon also.
Oh man, Glasnow. And I forgot about Snell too. Wow.
Yeah.
Tampa's kind of nasty. Wow. That's going to be a pretty fun team to watch if they do make the playoffs. So go Rays here, I suppose. But
yeah, they're 9.5 games out of the AL East behind the Yankees, but I assume that puts them in wildcard contention. They have 83 wins. Cleveland has 81. Oakland has 81. So they're the number one wildcard team right now.
Nice. All right, Rays going to be my playoff team if the Cubs collapse here. So, all right, anything else before we move it on? Tampa bats at all against Buchholz?
I don't mind it. Buchholz certainly isn't a very good pitcher. The park's not great for hitting, but you do have pretty decent salaries on Tampa Bay. I think that Meadows stands out at 4,800. Looks like half their lineup is questionable though. Sogard, Pham, d'Arnaud, all with Q tags right now. So a lot will depend on how watered down this lineup is.
Yeah, there's 3 guys right now with the questionable tag that definitely could change the entire landscape of this lineup. So keep an eye out for that. Of course, we're going to have more information as lineups start to fill in here in the afternoon. Philadelphia and the New York Mets. We've got Zach Eflin going up against Steven Matz. Eflin and the Phillies, 3.9 implied total, 4.7 for the Mets. This game looks pretty ugly around game time. If it does go, I think Matz is going to be an option I get to, especially if we don't think we're going to be able to get to McKay because of his pitch count. I always think Matz is a little bit underpriced, at least this season. Low implied total here. Good weather as far as temperature goes. It's just going to be a matter of, is the rain going to hold off? So if all those things look decent, I have a lot of interest in $7,600 Matz. What say you, Adam?
I agree. It's the Phillies lineup isn't terrible, but it's just a price tag that I think is a little bit low on Matz. He's got about a 22.5% strikeout percentage this year. Another pitcher with a Sierra around between 4.2 and 4.5. Gives up some power, gives up stolen bases. So I think someone like Gene Segura is a really good play against him. I think Real Muto is a really strong catcher option. There are definitely bats you can go to in the Philadelphia lineup, but I do think that Matz projects well and that he probably should just be $500 to $1,000 more expensive.
Agreed. So I'll just take advantage of that on a big slate. Right now he's getting, just over 20% ownership on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel, he is under 10, 8,100 over there. And then on Yahoo, Matz is at, he's $40 over there, 16% ownership. So I think I like him on every site tonight as a mid-tier option on FanDuel, as an SP1 or SP2 with the double mid-tier on DraftKings and Yahoo as well. What about Eflin? Is he a guy you're looking at 6,600 against the Mets?
Probably not. The Mets are just a team that I don't really like to attack. They have good hitters in their lineup, but they also have a lot of guys that just don't really strike out. McNeil, Conforto, Ramos, Cano, Davis, even Rosario are not the best strikeout guys. And then Pete Alonso, obviously, is just a phenomenal hitter. So it's not like you're chalking him up as a positive for Eflin. So just not a spot on the slate with all the decent, cheap pitching in good spots that I think I'll need to get to.
Agreed. I do like the Conforto and McNeil calls, though. So those would be two guys I probably play if this game goes. Again, keep an eye on this one. The Red Sox game in this one looks to be the ugliest right now, but I'm sure a lot could shift with the incoming storms on the East Coast. All right, let's go to the Nationals and the Braves. We've got Patrick Corbin going up against Dallas Keuchel. This is a 7:20 Eastern start time. 4.7 implied total for the Nats, 4.4 for the Braves here. A couple pitchers that are highly priced and not great matchups. We saw Fried do it last night against the Nationals. Do you have any interest in Keuchel at 9,300?
No. Still, all the things we said about the matchup for Fried last night obviously apply to Keuchel. Just a lot of right-handed bats that are good hitters and don't strike out a lot. But Keuchel also just isn't Fried. Fried has really, really good stuff. Fried is really good at limiting hard contact. Keuchel does throughout his career done a pretty good job at that because of his ground ball percentage. But I just don't anticipate Keuchel picking up enough strikeouts in this matchup for me to want him.
Corbin in the teens in ownership right now, 14% on DraftKings. Do you agree with that? I feel like this is a guy I never play. Like he's always $1,000 out of the price range, or there's always a better option for cheaper or something like that. But going up against the Braves, it's not a terrible spot for strikeouts or anything, but I just don't see myself getting here with Corbin 90 degrees and wind blowing out in Atlanta.
I don't anticipate it either. He's someone too. Like I think he's a really good pitcher, but I'm with you. I just haven't really gotten to him on most slates. It's like there's always aces that I like more, or a slate like today where I just think that there's a pretty wide range of options in the mid range and value range that I'll get to. So not a great spot. Acuna, Albies, Freeman, Donaldson, all good hitters. Duvall's fine. Swanson's fine. It wouldn't be surprising to see a good game from Corbin, but I think that it would be surprising to see like a ceiling game in this spot.
Yeah, I actually like the Braves bats quite a bit. You mentioned all the guys, Acuna, Albies, Donaldson. You can get to Freeman for under 5K, lefty. He's not going to get a lot of ownership. The Braves are just cheap. And like, why do they have a lower implied total today compared to yesterday? They were at like 4.8 or 9 yesterday against Strasburg. It was the same weather. I don't understand why they're lower today. So maybe I need to rethink something there. But they're just showing 4.4 right now. Hopefully that total climbs a little bit, so I feel better about this Braves call. But I'm definitely interested in them as a stack, especially if Corbin's going to be getting some ownership on the two pitcher sites. Nats bats at all?
I think they're interesting in tournaments, assuming they're not going to get ownership. Keuchel doesn't miss a lot of bats. He's, I think, a pretty average pitcher, but 19.4% strikeout percentage this year, 1.28 home runs per nine, and you just have so much power in this lineup. I think that they're probably going to end up going overlooked on this slate, and they're somewhat interesting in tournaments.
All right, let's go to Seattle and Houston. We have Tommy Milone going up against Framber Valdez. Valdez, one of the chalkier options on the entire slate right now. You look at him on DraftKings, he's right below Pablo Lopez. He's at 23% right now, under 7K against Seattle, who strikes out a bunch versus lefties. Might have a bunch of lefties in the lineup here. I'm seeing 4 in the projected lineup. Do you agree with the Valdez ownership right now at 23% on DK?
Sort of. I mean, it makes sense to me. Seattle's not a terrible matchup, but Valdez isn't a great strikeout pitcher either. He does a pretty good job getting ground balls, but in the majors this year, 22.3% strikeout percentage. His strikeout numbers at AAA were much better, but we've seen him for part of this season and last season in the majors not be a high strikeout guy. So I think he's cheap enough and in a good enough matchup that I understand why he's getting ownership, and I think that it's fine, but I don't love him at this salary.
I was just looking at the numbers for just active roster versus lefties, and I thought there was a typo when I sorted by WRC plus because Houston is so high. They're at a 139 WRC plus as a team on their active roster right now versus lefties. Mariners actually not that bad, 102. The strikeout numbers are super high, but they do get on base. They do have some power, possible leverage spot. The problem is who would be the bats you'd want to take?
I think Tom Murphy's the one that really stands out. He's inexpensive. He's a catcher. He has plenty of power. I think Austin Nola is a perfectly fine value option. But other than that, I'm with you. It's who individually stands out. Right. To me, it's basically Murphy.
Right. 15-game slate. I don't think I need to get to a lot of Seattle bats, even if Valdez is chalky. I don't think it's a real blow-up spot. Even though it is baseball, there's not a lot of talent on the Seattle roster. It would be Murphy and Nola. Astros bats, 6.5 implied total here. It is the highest on the slate, I believe, and for good reason. Against Tommy Milone, let's look at some Tommy Milone numbers right now. He is at over 2 home runs per 9, under a 21% K percentage against, looking at these numbers for Houston, the best team versus lefties on the season, and you can see why they're just absolutely stacked. Is Houston a top 2 or 3 stack tonight?
Yeah, I think so. I was trying to pull up Baseball Savant for Malone, like I was able to for Gonzalez yesterday, but haven't gotten it pulled up yet. But he's another left-handed pitcher who gives up a lot of fly balls and a lot of pulled balls to right-handed hitters. 44.2% fly ball percentage, 41.4% pull percentage this year. So another guy where he could just, even if he pitches well, he could just get pretty unlucky in this park because of how short the wall and left is. And then he's also just not a great pitcher, and he's in a really tough matchup against the Astros. Springer not being in the lineup, or probably not being in the lineup, is a downgrade, but still just a really dangerous lineup. You have a top prospect up in Kyle Tucker, who is a lefty, but also a good hitter. So, I think Houston's a really, really good stack.
Houston, yeah. So I think they're the best stack on the night, which isn't saying a lot because they've got the highest implied total. They're going up against Tommy Milone, but it looks like outside of a couple guys, they're not getting owned that much. So I hope this sticks. We've got Bregman at 16 on DK, Altuve at 13, then nobody else above 6% ownership. Yordan Alvarez always goes under owned. Especially when they're going up against the lefty. If you're stacking Houston, why would you not want Alvarez in your stacks and Brantley too? They bat at the top of the order. They're good hitters. They're probably going to face a righty at some point, and it's not like they can't hit balls against Tommy Malone either. So I
Yeah, and I mean
absolutely
Malone's
love him.
allowed, small sample this year, but Malone's allowed a 308 ISO and a 241 expected ISO to left-handed hitters.
Yeah, so I would imagine, even if I don't get to 20% of my lineups with Houston stacks, I'm going to be overweight on all the low-owned parts of this, and at least going to be at the field with Altuve and Bregman. Just looks like a really fun spot. Hopefully, is Kyle Tucker going to be in this lineup? I see there's not a price listed for him, but
Yeah, he's in the player pool.
yeah,
They
he's at
messed that up.
4,200, right? I'm pretty sure.
I don't have it in front of me. I know he was 37 on DraftKings yesterday.
Yeah, we've got him at 42. There was some confusion with whether or not he was in the pool. I know. So I think I ended up with none of him. I don't think it really mattered, but some people were confused as to whether or not he was in the pool. I think he is on 2 out of the 3 sites at least. So just check on that.
I got the Malone spray charts pulled up, and really, really comparable to Gonzalez yesterday, where against right-handed hitters this year, if he faced all of them in Seattle, he would have allowed 14 home runs, it looks like. But in Houston, he's at like 23 or 24.
Wow. Houston looks amazing. Yeah, definitely hope this ownership sticks on them. Let's move it on to the Cubs and the Brewers. We've got Cole Hamels going up against Zach Davies. 5.2 implied total for the Cubs, 4.9 for the Brewers. These are 2 teams I think I should have interest in. Neither one is sticking out as a great stack tonight outside of the pricing. So I wonder if these 2 teams are going to go a little bit over-owned when you're looking at the DraftKings pricing, especially for Milwaukee. Is there a team you prefer here?
I think the Cubs, especially if Baez is back, I just don't have much respect for Davies as a pitcher. Doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. Somehow doesn't get blown up, every start, but it's a pretty good Cubs team, especially if Baez is in the lineup. Adding Castellanos at the deadline just made this lineup so deep. And so I think I like Chicago a bit. Good values on Milwaukee. Kane, Grandal, Braun, all really cheap. Hernan Perez is as well. Hamels is a pretty good pitcher, but he will give up. He has a 22.5% strikeout percentage, 4.5 Sierra. He'll give up some runs. I think that Milwaukee's a good value stack, but like you said, there's a pretty good chance that they end up just getting more ownership than they probably should.
Yeah, I mean, the pricing is kind of ridiculous on some of these guys. Grandal under 4K, Kane, if he's leading off, 3,600, Braun's at 4,100. Pena, if he's in the lineup, he's 3K catcher. Hernan Perez, 29. Arcia and Spangenberg aren't any good, but they're cheap. So if you can get all these guys in there, or I think they're going to pop up a lot if they have a nice 5 implied total. So I'm going to be looking to go elsewhere because Hamels isn't a guy I love picking on. I think I do prefer the Cubs. I think I'm with you there. So not a ton of interesting stuff to say about this game. But for a 10 total, I feel like we have to talk about some bats here, or we had to talk about some bats here. Real quick, do you have any interest in either pitcher, Davies or Hamels?
No, not unless we get like Hamels faced Milwaukee, I think it was last week or earlier this week or something, and they ran out like the worst lineup they possibly could. But outside of something like that, I don't think so.
Okay. I just wanted to check really quick to see if Davies was getting any ownership, just because he's cheap. Nope, he is under 1% right now, so no real reason to get to him. Or the Cubs are a good stack by themselves. You don't really need the leverage against the cheap pitcher anyways. Ready to move it on here, or you want to mention any other hitters?
Nope.
All right, Cleveland and Minnesota, just a few games left. We've got Adam Plutko going up against Michael Pineda. 4.6 implied total here for Cleveland, 6 for Minnesota. Michael Pineda at 10K. Are you willing to write that off against Cleveland?
Yeah, I'm just not interested. He's a good pitcher, or a decent pitcher, but 22.6% strikeout percentage, 4.25 Sierra. Just not really seeing why I would want to pay 10K for him, especially against the Indians. I know they just got lit up by Ronaldo Lopez yesterday, but that's not something you're going to count on game to game. They're still a dangerous offense. They still have a lot of guys that are pretty tough strikeouts. So I don't really see it for Pineda.
Yeah, he's had a really nice stretch against some bad teams lately. Like, if you look at the DK points, 27, 25, 16, 17, 12, 21, 16, and then a few starts prior to that, he had 27 and 29 again. But this run of matchups he's had is so incredibly favorable. Like, he's faced the White Sox 4 times in that span. He's faced the Tigers twice, got the Marlins in there, Rangers twice as well in all those starts I listed. So it's just he's beating up on bad teams. Cleveland, at this stage of the season, is not even close to a bad team. It's a pretty deep lineup with power and speed. So I have no interest in getting to Pineda at 10K. How about bats against Plutko here? He's a guy you like to pick on, right? He has real issues against lefties too, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he has issues against everyone. Not a high strikeout guy for the season. Trying to get there. Trying to get his numbers up. So yeah, 232 ISO to righties this year, 242 to lefties. Only a 10% strikeout percentage against lefties compared to 21.5 against righties. So upside for everyone. Lefties, just in an even better spot. So Kepler, Polanco, Rosario really jump off the page, but I think that it's also a good spot for Cruz and Sano and Crone and everyone else on the Twins.
Yeah, Polanco, the only guy that's a question mark right now. Other than that, I think we should have a pretty normal Twins lineup. Would love to play Polanco if he's in because he's 4,600. Want to take a look at the Yahoo pricing on the Twins. They're somewhat expensive. It's always tough when you don't get any of the punt plays, but we do possibly have one if Cashier's in the lineup. With Astudillo back and Garver having a really awesome season, you never really know who's going to be the Twins catcher from game to game. But if Castro's in, he's the obvious value there over on Yahoo. Polanco, $18. Rosario at 15. That's going to be a possible cash option. And then Arias at 15 as well. So we'll have to see what happens with the Twins lineup, but they're definitely a top 5 stack at this point. I didn't even realize how little lefties Plutko is striking out. So going to be a ton of balls in play here for a team that is leading the league in home runs.
Yeah, I think that they're rivaling Houston for me as far as favorite stacks.
Oh, really? So
yeah, I really like them.
That might be a little bit of a hot take too. Actually, well, Houston's not that owned as a full stack. It's just those couple guys. Let's take a look at ownership on this game overall. Cleveland, Minnesota. Let's take out the starting pitchers. Neither pitcher getting ownership right now. So if you just sort by ownership over on DraftKings, Cruz, Kepler, Puig, Rosario, all over 10%. Castro, if he's in the lineup at 3,400. Nice value there. And then Polanco. So the Twins right now a little bit chalky. Chalkier than Houston as a whole. But it's not like you can't get some low-owned guys like Sano and Arias in there if Cave's in the lineup. I mean, CJ Cron at 1% at 4,400 is a pretty nice option as well in a twin stack. So wouldn't be scared off because of ownership at all, especially not on a 15-game slate like this.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I like the Twins so much in general is that they just have power throughout their entire lineup. So it's really not difficult to make contrarian twin stacks because you just have to roster someone like CJ Cron.
Yeah. What about any Cleveland bats? They're getting some ownership. Lindor and Puig getting some attention. Do you like anyone you want to point out against Michael Pineda?
I think Puig's salary is still just too low. He's got a lot of power, and he's $3,900 on DraftKings. Pineda has continued to have home run issues this year, particularly with right-handed hitters. 223 ISO allowed to righties. That's something that has been an issue for him for as long as I can remember. So I think that Puig is a good play. I think Franmil Reyes as well. And then, Lindor is never a bad play. Kipnis at 3,600 is never a bad play. But the two right-handed power bats there, Puig and Reyes, I think really stand out.
I zoned out of there for a minute. There's an interesting conversation. Well, I don't know if interesting is the word going on in YouTube chat about DFS being 100% luck. Some real hot takes going around. I guess that's what happens with September baseball. Anyways, let's move it on to the Angels and the White Sox. We've got Dylan Peters going up against Lucas Giolito. Peters at 5,400. Giolito, a lot of respect from the DraftKings algorithm, 12-1. in a tough strikeout matchup. I asked you about Pineda. I mean, is he a guy you're going to get to at all?
Probably not. I think Giolito's really, really good, but it's just tough to pay that salary for a guy against the Angels. Maybe if the Angels run out a little bit of a watered down lineup or get more strikeouts in there, like if Pujols isn't in and you get like Matt Dice instead or something like that, then it becomes a little bit more appealing for Giolito.
Yeah. Like if we saw, about 3-4 weeks ago when the Angels had that higher strikeout lineup, I think it was, you mentioned it, the Castillo spot, maybe where he went nuts, Luis Castillo against them. And it wasn't that bad of a strikeout matchup. And they were playing in the NL. So unless there's something like that going on with a bunch of high K guys at the bottom here, which it doesn't look like there's going to be, it's going to be a normal lineup with low K guys like Fletcher, Pujols. You're going to probably get Andrelton Simmons in there as well. It's just going to be too tough for 12-1 when we're trying to get to Houston and Minnesota and some expensive bats. And there's a pretty decent mid-tier. Plus, you've got Kershaw for cheaper in a better spot with a lower total against him. What about bats on either side? Or Peters? I suppose we should talk about him for 5,400. Possible punt option. What do you think of him overall?
Yeah, I think that he's projecting pretty well for me for the price tag. I think he's a good point per dollar option. Looks like he's getting ownership too on DraftKings at 5,400, which I think makes sense. But at the same time, it's not like the White Sox give you strikeouts, but they don't have really bad hitters. Like Tim Anderson, Abreu, Moncada, Jimenez, McCann. That's a better middle of the order than I think a lot of teams. So with how many cheap pitching options there are on the slate, I don't know how much Peters will actually get to, just because it's not hard to find good point per dollar options that aren't facing teams that have a 5.3 implied run total.
Yeah, I don't get the Peters love right now. And it's not crazy. He's at 13% right now in DraftKings. So if you do like him, it's not like he's mega chalk or anything, but it would be strictly just a price play for him. And I do like some of these righties. You mentioned Anderson, Abreu, always get to Eloy Jimenez, and then McCann. So certainly some power bats you could take against Peters. Looks like some wind blowing out maybe to right center. Not going to be all that much help to righties, but a pretty favorable, or at least not a bad hitting environment when you compare some other spots on the slate. Angels bats against Giolito. I mean, Mike Trout is 4,900. Anyone else besides that you're looking at?
3,900 for Ohtani is always an appealing spot, but I do just think Giolito is a great pitcher, so probably not tons of Angels.
Sounds good. Detroit and Oakland. We've got a 3.3 implied total here for the Tigers, 5.8 for the Athletics. I was surprised to see a total this high. I don't think Turnbull is that bad, but is there something I'm missing on Turnbull? I mean, why does Oakland have a top 3-4 implied total on this slate?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. It's supposed to be like 68 degrees in Oakland. Most of their lineup is right-handed. Turnbull against righties this year has a 24.4% strikeout percentage, 303 WOBA allowed, 141 ISO allowed. He's not a bad pitcher. I mean, you can make the argument that he's not great either, and then the pitchers behind him are really bad, so the implied total is going to just be high. But yeah, I don't have nearly as much interest in a team like Oakland as I do in the Twins or the Astros, who also have high implied run totals.
Yeah, I mean, I think Oakland's fine as a stack. Like, if you would have said 5 implied total, I would have been somewhat interested. But if we're going to look at an Oakland team that has a near 6 implied total and no one in this lineup, their most expensive guy is Luriano in the projected lineup, and then no one else after that above 4,700 with Semien. You got Grossman in there for 3,500. I just think, Davis, of course, at 3,500 as well, Chris Davis. It's just going to be a spot that I think gets a little bit over-owned. And it's not like it's in a great park either in Oakland. I mean, I don't know what I'm missing here, so I'm glad we're on the same page. Probably going to be lower than the field on these Oakland bats right now. These guys actually aren't getting much ownership either. So I'm just puzzled all around. No one above 6% right now. That's got to come up if this implied total sticks, I would have to imagine. Willie Castro getting some ownership on the Detroit side. Do you have any interest in Bailey at 8,500 against this bad Detroit team in this park?
Yeah, I think Bailey's a reasonable option. There's not a lot of great top end pitching on this slate. So uh, on a lot of slates, like I would rather, or my preferred roster construction would be to take one of the cheaper arms and then pair him with someone at the top. But there's nobody at the top that I'm really in love with at their price point. We don't have something like Verlander against the Tigers or something like that. So I think that using Bailey as an SP1 in some lineups makes sense. The Tigers obviously offer a lot of strikeouts. Bailey's pretty average across the board. So good pitcher's park. Probably a little bit overpriced, but I'm just not sure how much that's going to matter on this slate.
Yeah, I think you said it best. I mean, a little overpriced, but if I do get to him, it's going to be a lot. When I'm getting to him as an SP1, even though that sounds weird to have Homer Bailey at 8,500 as your SP1, but those would be the types of lineup constructions where I think he's viable at that price. Minus 278 favorite. I mean, he hasn't been a 278 favorite since his Cy Young year, right? He was a Cy Young, right?
No, I don't think so.
I thought he was really awesome for 1 year.
He threw a no-hitter once.
Let's see. Yeah, you're probably right. He wasn't a Cy Young. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else.
He was supposed to be, like, really good.
Yeah, he was a really big prospect. Yeah, what am I thinking? Not a Cy Young. He went 13-10 1 year. That might have been the no-hitter year. I must be thinking of someone else as far as a guy who just came out of nowhere, had one Cy Young season, and then hung around forever. Anything on the Detroit side you want to mention?
No.
Me either.
No, they suck.
They are very bad. A couple more games to go. Giants and Dodgers. We've got Jeff Samardzija going up against Clayton Kershaw. 3.1 implied total for Samardzija. 5.5 for the Dodgers. Cody Bellinger getting, what does he have? 29% ownership right now. Highest owned player on the slate at $5,100. I mean, I love Bellinger, but this Dodger stack looks like it's getting some attention. Do you like Dodgers bats? And then where does Kershaw rank on kind of your top pitchers today? High price for him.
I like the Dodgers. It looks like it's supposed to be 85, 86 degrees in LA. So that's actually some of the more favorable hitting conditions on the slate, which is unusual, but it's because the East Coast is pretty cool right now. So you have that. You have a negative park shift because of that for Samardzija getting outside of San Francisco. And then just a lot of really good lefties in the lineup for the Dodgers. So I think that they are a good stack, but if people are going to gravitate toward them, I would just rather be taking Houston and Minnesota. I think that guys like Bellinger and Peterson and Seager are all really good plays. I think that Bellinger's underpriced, Seager's underpriced, Turner and Pollock are underpriced. So it's a stack that I expect to get a lot of ownership because they're in a pretty good spot and they're a really good team and they're really cheap for the most part. So the ownership makes sense, but with it being a 15-game slate, I'm probably just not going to be playing one of the highest owned teams.
Yeah.
As far as Kershaw goes, the price tag is really expensive. He is my favorite of the expensive pitchers. He's my highest projected pitcher on the slate. It's not like a crazy high projection, so I don't know how much I'll actually get to, but I think it is a good matchup against the Giants. Not a good offensive team, middle of the road in strikeouts. Kershaw's strikeout stuff has been much, much better over the last couple of months. His slider's been getting more depth on it over that time. He's really been piling up strikeouts. Since the start of July, he has struck out 33.6% of hitters that he's faced. So that's considerably higher than his 27.1% overall this season. A few weeks ago that was down at like 24%. It's rising really, really quickly. The strikeout stuff's been really, really good. So I do like Kershaw. Like I would rather roster him than anyone else at the top. It's just a matter of how often I get to anyone in that price range.
Right. That's going to be what it is for me as well. I'd love to get to 20-25% Kershaw if I could. I just don't get to these guys unless it's a Garrett Cole slate where he's projected for 10 points more than the next highest owned pitcher. Unless it's a weird slate like that. I mean, 15 games, we've got a bunch of options in all the tiers tonight. So Not going to get to probably as much Kershaw as the field, but would love to have some lineups with that construction because it is a good spot against the Giants, who they're a bottom 7 or 8 team in total versus lefties this season. Not a terrible strikeout matchup, and he's a massive, massive favorite. We talked about Dodgers bats. Let's move it on to the last game of the slate. Colorado and San Diego. Tim Melville going up against Dinelson Lamet. And we've got a 4 implied total here for the Rockies, 5.1 for the Padres. Dinelson Lamet at 10-3. It's expensive. This guy gets pulled very often early. They don't let him go deep, even when he is pitching well. Can you even make a case for him at 10-3 here on DraftKings?
You can make a case for him because he has the second highest strikeout percentage on the slate behind Giolito. But the problem is what you said. He's most likely going to throw 90, 95 pitches. We have the one start where he got to 104. He took a no-hitter into, I think, the 7th inning of that game against Seattle. So outside of unusual circumstances, you're seeing him get pulled at pretty much the same point in every game. High strikeout percentage, high walk percentage means that the pitch count gets elevated pretty quickly, and he's not getting very deep into games. The Rockies do really struggle outside of cores, as we would expect, and as has been pointed out a lot throughout the season. So I think that at 10-3, he's maybe going to get into some lineups just because I have the stack that I want, I have the one-offs that I want, and I have the money for him and not the money for Kershaw. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, it's just tough to get there because I think that he probably has a good game. I think it's likely that he doesn't hurt you, but I think that at 10,300, when you have the kind of restraints that you do on Lamet, it's tough for him to put up that monster game.
Yeah, well said. $38 on Yahoo for Lamet. That's a possible cash lineup. I mean, they are just looking for 5 innings and a bunch of strikeouts, which he's done a ton of times this season in a good strikeout matchup versus Colorado. He is a favorite. It's just going to be really tough to try to get there on DraftKings. Yeah. I think if you think about like Alex's projections, you're looking for that 2.0 threshold of value for pitchers. And tonight there's going to be a bunch of them that hit that. But I think he's going to project for like 17 points or something like that. And that's fine on a raw point basis. He's going to be up there. But as far as a guy that I'm going to play with regularity, I don't think he's going to be one of those. So
yeah, I think he's a great play on Yahoo at 38, like you said. I think he's a good play on FanDuel at 8,400. The problem there is just that, again, he's only gone more than 5 innings twice in his last 10 starts. And you get points for quality starts. So that's a little bit of a concern there, but it's the DraftKings pricing that really throws me off of him.
Yeah. T. McBee says, can we address the early ownership, particularly this 41% FanDuel ownership projection for Renfroe at 2,600 on a 15-game slate? Do you want to talk about Renfroe? What would you do with a 41% owned hitter? That guy would just get filtered out for you more often than not, right?
Yeah, especially on a slate of this size, I just would end up not getting there. I also, it's 10:30 in the morning. I assume he won't be 41% owned by 6:30. But also 2,600 for him against Tim Melville is pretty clearly a misprice. So I still think he'll be really popular.
Yeah, I mean, good spot. But even if he's like 30%, that's still a guy that he's not going to project that much better than the next guy in that range where I still would get to him a lot. So I think you can go elsewhere. You can play him if you're stacking up the Padres, but I wouldn't be looking to play him a bunch as a one-off because that's going to be popular for people that don't account for ownership and just run projections blindly. Any other Padres bats you want to mention, or Rockies for that matter?
Yeah, I kind of like the Padres. Like they're cheap. I don't think Melville's any good. Machado stands out. Renfroe, I think really stands out as a great play if you ignore ownership, or if the ownership projection comes down a bit. So I like both of those guys a lot, but I think that you could also get probably a lower owned like Austin Hedges as a power catcher bat that wouldn't be a terrible play either. I would like the Padres more if I liked the expensive pitching on the slate more, but I think they're in a good spot. It's just I don't know. I don't think they outscore teams like Houston or the Dodgers or the Twins all that often.
All right, that will do it. We did all 15 games. You guys are going to want to check out Yahoo, build up that bankroll the next couple of days for the week 1 baller tournament, $1 million baller. It is management fee free. You're not going to find a better tournament. 10 max only. I'll show you guys that on the screen where you can get to that. Just go to the NFL tab, click on this tournament. If that's too expensive for you, they got the $1 10 max. They have the $10 10 max. I would recommend getting in all these if you're playing a few $100 each slate for NFL. But you're just not going to find a better tournament elsewhere. All right, schedule for the rest of the day. There is a ton going on. Right after this, 11 Eastern, it will be the NFL Strategy Show, the Fantasy Cruncher edition. Manny Laura from Fantasy Cruncher with Chris Randone will be breaking down the slate and some things, some nuances in Fantasy Cruncher. You're not going to want to miss this show. 11 Eastern, 12 Eastern will be the sports betting show. Osmo Odds there, Jordan Frank and Ben Raza. And then we will have a Yahoo NFL Strategy Show with Alex Baker, Osmo himself. The deep dive will be written by Adam. We have Four Corners with Chris Spags. I believe he's doing one today. On the contrary, this is also going to be one you're not going to want to miss. So just keep the Osmo YouTube channel up all day. There will be shows going on basically until 7 Eastern. It will be On the Contrary with Chris Spags, Alex, and then Travis Petty. So 2 top 10 ranked players in DFS right now. Going to be a pretty cool stream. They'll be breaking down week 1 with some spicy takes. Deeper dive will be Adam and myself. We'll go through these 15 games once again. And then MLB Live Before Lock will be with myself once again with Chris Spags. So you'll be seeing a lot of me and a lot of other people all day today. So pretty cool day of streams. Of course, you're going to want to check out the NFL ownership projections. We've got Adam Pfeiffer's matchup column. We're going to have shows all weekend for NFL. We'll have a show tomorrow for MLB. That's going to be a little bit earlier than what you guys are used to on Saturdays. It's going to be at normal time, I believe. So just look out for a time on that tomorrow. We will announce that in Slack. But just a ton going on. I probably forgot like 10 things that we're doing. But check out Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Once again, we need to fill these tournaments. They are doing something good for the industry. So get in the $1 million baller. Get in all the rake-free tournaments that can be offered. Anything more, Adam?
Nope. I'll have the deep dive article out in the next few hours and then be back with you for the deeper dive.
Awesome. Good luck tonight, guys.